Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Welcome for our panel with Experian. So we're really excited for you to join us and for them to talk about their very talented colleagues in the corner. So I'm Aileen. I am a Co-First Girls ambassador. I currently work as a delivery manager for a challenger bank. And I've been working with Co-First Girls now for quite a few years. So it's always nice to meet more of the community. If you have any questions, please put them in the YouTube chat and the team will get back to you. And without any further ado, I'm going to invite Oriane onto the stream for her to give a bit of an intro of what Experian is. Hi, Oriane. Nice to see you.
Thank you. And yeah, a massive thank you to everyone for joining us. This is actually our first event with Co-First Girls. So you are the first to be hearing about Experian. You're the first to be involved in this partnership. And to us, that's actually quite an exciting time. So I'll just break down the structure and how we're going to run this so you know what to expect. But as we've covered, please do put any questions in the comments section. We have allocated time at the end to get through that. But what I'm going to start with is an introduction. So helping you figure out who are Experian and what do we actually do. So we're going to start with that. And then we're going to move to almost like a panel style event. I've got a few of my colleagues and we're going to be talking about the various career pathways. So how people joined, what their role is, what they do day to day, but also give you the chance to ask anything that is on your mind. So be brave, speak up, get involved. And what I'll do now is I'll just jump into sharing my screen. So give me 1 or 2 moments to get that up and we'll jump in. Okay. There we go. Has that popped up? Let me swap the screen.
Yeah, it has. You might need to swap the screen a little bit.
No, that's fine. I'm used to it. When I have two monitors, it's the best thing in the world. But then you end up with screen anxiety, it's called, when you're about to present and you click the wrong monitor. So, to kick us off, I'll start with an introduction. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Oriane Whiteman. You can just call me Oreo, like the cookie biscuit. And I am a senior talent acquisition partner here in the early careers team. Now, what I'd really like to start with is something that's quite common. So, when it comes to Experian, what you currently know, what you're currently aware of, pop in the comments if you can and let us know who are Experian and what do we do. So it's not a test, but just let us know who are Experian and what do you think we do. And Aileen, if you can let me know what comes through, if there's kind of any themes, that would be really great. But for those of you that are with us, let us know who are Experian and what do we do.
Yeah, sounds good. Just waiting for the comments to come through.
We've had all sorts of brilliant ones when we've been introducing previously, so I cannot wait to see what people come out with.
We've got credit scores, credit
Yep.
checks, financial scoring, credit score company, credit history. Yeah, big theme on credit.
Which is good. We expect that. But surprisingly, there is a lot more to Experian than just credit scores. So I could just give you the answer, but instead, I'm going to go into a brain teaser. So I'm going to show you 6 companies, and I want you, again, to pop in the comments. Let me know what you think these 6 companies have in common. So pop in the comments. Again, be completely brave. Go for it. Somebody said they all make a ton of money, which I thought was an interesting take. But pop in the comments, what do you think all of these companies have in common? And same again, Eileen, if you can let me know what starts coming through, what themes we get.
We've got popularity. We've got a really expensive marketing department, technology, advertising merits, big tech teams. They all have users. Yeah, really, really good points.
Yeah,
All are service providers.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, lots of good themes there. So the one that people tend to overlook and the one that actually links back to Experian is they all use the power of data. So if you think about Instagram, for example, Instagram uses data and algorithms to show you content at the top of your feed. Hermes, for example, they use data to work out the most optimal delivery routes to then reduce their CO2. Netflix, we all know that when it comes up, recommended for you. You might be interested in this. All 6 of these companies are powered by the same thing, and that's data. And if we go back to who are Experian and what is it we do, that's the short answer. We unlock the power of data. Now, that sounds great in principle, but that still doesn't quite bring it to life. So I'm just going to give you a few examples here. And let me just hide this at the bottom. So if I just pick one of these, for example, so the NHS, we know that COVID has been a very, very challenging year. What you may not be aware of is Experian have been working directly with Number 10 and the government, as well as NHS trusts and NHS regions. And at the moment, we're using AI advanced technology to help local NHS regions and trusts be able to simulate where that next wave of the virus may be. What impact, what will that have on that region? How can we respond quickly to it? Coca-Cola, if any of you got a bottle with your name on it, sadly, I was never one of those. I wish they came out with an Oriane Coca-Cola bottle. But if anyone did get one, that was also powered by Experian. And just to bring more of that to life, so Sussex Council, for those of you that may be students, you have the absolute joy of not paying council tax. For those of you that are not students, you will understand the pain. It's expensive, but it's equally really important. And every year, £60 million is claimed fraudulently. What Experian was able to do was work with Sussex Council, be able to match details against our credit bureau and almost list those in a rank order. So the highest priority cases were right at the top. This meant that Sussex Council could then direct all of their resources to the most likely cases. And as a result, they recovered £422,000. So when I say Experian is a lot more than just credit scores, I genuinely mean it. And this is the hardest part for us as a business, to try and explain to other people just how much goes on, just how many products and services we offer. The people that I have with me today will be able to tell you a little bit more about their roles and what that encompasses. But we would be here all night if I tried to list off every product that we have within our suite. So I hope that brings to life a little bit more about Experian being powered by data and being very much more of a technology company than a financial business or a credit score company. That is a very common misconception. If I give you just a high level overview of the numbers, for anyone that does know of Experian, you'll know that we're a very successful global organization. We're a FTSE 100 business. We operate quite successfully in the consumer space, like the credit scores you see on TV. But we also work directly with businesses, and that B2B market is also very, very strong. So this is just a snapshot overview of our business. It's great to see numbers, it's great to see stats, but the high level is we're a really successful, stable organization that reinvest money back into the business, whether that's investing in technology and software, whether it's volunteering in the community. We are passionate about giving back to society where we can. Now, for those of you that may be listening and thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds a lot more than what I was expecting. I might be on a Code First Girls bootcamp. I might be on my own career journey. Maybe Experian somewhere I should look at joining. My answer is yes, please do. We would love that. And as the senior talent acquisition partner in early careers, I can tell you a ton of information about our programs. What I would recommend is if any of you are interested, we're going to be following up with a link. So you'll be directed to our careers site. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn personally. If you have any questions about our programs, we can talk about that separately. But what I want the focus of this time to be is you really learning about the pathways and the variety of career journeys that people have had with Experian. So I'm going to pause us there. I'm going to take a step back so that we can stop sharing and we can start going into more of the really juicy content and the reason that all of you are here with us today. So I hope that was informative, but if we want to bring up the rest of my colleagues, we'll start with some introductions.
Great. Well, thanks for that introduction. I'm going to bring up all of the team from backstage. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. We've got...
Thank you.
And we have Sarah as well, right?
Yes, Scarlett's joined us, which is great. And Sarah works in our community volunteering team as well. She's not a panelist, so don't panic, but I believe she does want to listen and be involved. So by all means, it's perfectly fine. So I think the best way to start would be with some introductions. So what I'll do is if we go around the room, I'll call out some names. And if we can just start with obviously your name, your current role at Experian, and then we'll go into some of the questions. So if I start with you, Gemma, if you just want to give a very quick introduction.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm Gemma Martin, and I'm a lead analyst in the Identity and Fraud Analytics team.
Fab. And on to you next, Hayley.
Hi, so I'm Hayley Hill. I'm a software developer in the Experian Consumer Services business unit.
Fabulous. And on to, I think next is Scarlett.
Hi, I'm Scarlett Crops. I'm a client support specialist in the decision analytics team.
Fab. And on to you, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Lyon. I'm domain leader for the marketplace team, which is quite complicated to explain if you're not in the business, but we do a lot of services to other businesses and support comparison websites, amongst other things.
Brilliant. So for this section of the event, what I'm going to be doing is asking the four ladies with me a range of different questions. So the idea is to give you a bit of insight and as well as a bit of exposure, but obviously please do pop in the comments any other thoughts. So what we're going to start with is, I'm going to pick on you first, Rachel, if that's okay. So what did you study at university, and talk me through that kind of career journey? So what was that like?
Yeah, sure. So I studied engineering at university, and I think the reason I went into it into the first place was my favourite subjects were maths and physics and chemistry at A level, and actually my grandfather and my father had both been engineers, and so it kind of made sense to use those skills. I was also intrigued by how things worked, and as a kid I used to like taking apart the back of the alarm clock to see all the cogs and everything like that, so kind of like it seemed like an obvious choice. So I went off to do engineering, and really kind of enjoyed it in terms of relishing the challenge of, you know, problem solving as a degree. But I was at Cambridge University, and a lot of the financial services companies from the city would come to Cambridge as kind of a MOOC round thing and sort of entice you into that world of financial services. And so at the time, as you can imagine, as like a 21-year-old or whatever, it seemed very glamorous and very exciting. So I kind of was very much led by the champagne kind of, you know, introductions and stuff. And I sort of skipped off to London to do this stuff. And it was fine. It was quite fun. But I soon realized it wasn't really my calling in terms of my passion. And, you know, I wasn't, and I started off in consultancy. So I worked for Boston Consulting Group, which, you know, it was a real eye opener to lots of different industries. And I did mainly an analyst role for the first couple of years. But then I decided I just wanted to get a bit closer to the coalface of business. You know, you kind of, as a consultant, you're a little bit removed from the day-to-day kind of trials and tribulations of success or failure. And I wanted to feel that kind of, you know, a business sort of challenge a bit more closely. So I applied for a job with Barclaycard and started working in their strategy department, which was kind of like a sort of an easy move into industry. But then from there, I did a whole range of different roles in sort of commercial roles, analytical roles. I worked in partnerships for a while. I worked in remediation policies for mis-selling of insurance products. So a whole load of different roles. And I think
so,
at the heart...
just to pause you there, Rachel. So I imagine most of these questions are going to end up going your way because you've kind of seen it all from that career journey. You've had a bit of a flavour of most things.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think I will skip ahead to Experian now because we, you know, this is kind of more about Experian than anything else. But what was quite interesting is I really struggled about those kind of dinner time conversations when people said, you know, what do you do? And I kind of like, I really kind of aspired to doing something clever and analytical and technical. But at the same time, the kind of the purpose of what we were trying to achieve, I kind of sort of lost me a little bit, and I would find myself feeling a bit sheepish. You know, I would say things like, "Oh, well, like I work for a credit card company, and we do like partnerships, and we help people get better deals on their insurance." Or, you know, and I kind of like when I started to describe it, I felt like I just couldn't really. I didn't feel like my heart and soul was behind it. And then, interestingly, I got called up by a headhunter one day who said, "We've got this great role at Experian," and I was like, "Oh God, it sounds like credit scores and credit policies." And I feel a bit I'm feeling a bit hollow at the moment and a bit sort of lacking in real passion. So it doesn't sound like it's right for me. And the guy said, "Look, just go meet the guy, meet the MD of this part of the business, and just see how the conversation goes." So I was like, "Okay, fine." So I met the guy, and I have to say I was really bowled over by the passion and, you know, sincerity and authenticity of the guy that I met. And it was a guy called Amir Goshtai who was heading up, again, it was a partnership business, but it was part of the consumer part of Experian. And what I realized through the conversation, and it's absolutely true, is that when people get up in the morning, they don't go, "Oh, I wonder what my credit score is today. Oh, let me go and find out." They don't do that. They get up in the morning and they go, "Oh, I really, really want to save for my first house. You know, I really, really would love to be able to do a renovation, or I'd love to be able to bridge the gap and save some money to finish my studies or start my own business or get out of debt or do all those things that they really emotionally care for and really, you know, really emotionally resonate." That's what we do to help people. And actually, at the heart of it, when you think about it, it's about helping people fulfill their dreams. And it's about enabling that through data. And actually, when you step back and remember that, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I could get excited about this." And then the other thing I found is not to diss the big banks, because don't get me wrong, I learned a lot through working for Barclays. I didn't realize at the time what a world of stuffed shirts it really was, you know, and I was kind of constantly striving to be this kind of, you know, this corporate, and people used to talk about your brand, your brand, what's your brand? And, and I realized that I just could never quite pull off that poker face in a meeting where, you try to be like really kind of formal and really kind of composed, and people used to question my style all the time, and and I always felt like I didn't quite meet up to what was required, and I couldn't work out how to do what was required, quite frankly. But then I got to Experian, and this guy who I met, he was like this unconstrained puppy dog in terms of how excitable he was and passionate about what he did. And I met the rest of his leadership team, and they were all pretty similar, to be honest. They were all really quirky, a little bit bonkers, but just totally themselves. And I was like, oh, I could get, and then I started working for Experian, and I started off with that dreadful imposter syndrome because I was brought in as like head of product for this
I'll pause it there, Rachel, because you joined as a head of. We'll get to Gemma, Hayley, and Scarlett, obviously, kind of your roles in a bit more detail. But for the three of you, did you have that same imposter syndrome feeling when you joined Experian? That overwhelming? Oh my god! Like, pop yourselves off mute, jump in, please. Did you experience that? Was it similar? Was it different?
I'd say I definitely did. Oh, go on, Dominic. Go, you go.
No, you go.
Go on then, Scarlett. You kick us off.
I think when I joined, everything was really overwhelming. There's so much to do, so many people to meet, and you are kind of like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to fit in here? Am I going to be, who am I going to be like when you look at your managers? Am I going this way or this way? But I think as soon as you kind of have more weeks into it, you kind of realize that, oh, this is actually where I'm going, and it becomes less and less, and then you feel part of the team.
Yeah.
What
about for you, Gemma?
Yeah, no, I was going to say a similar thing, but because I joined, actually, I did a placement year back at the start, about 6 years ago now. And when I did that, I was like, I got all these smart dresses and stuff, and I was coming in, I was like, oh gosh, what am I doing? But after like a week or something, you just settle down so much, and everyone seems so friendly, and there is all that path that's literally there waiting for you, so you don't need to like worry about it and things like that.
What about for you, Hayley? What was it like when you joined?
It was definitely pretty similar. I think joining a team where everyone already knows each other and you're kind of the odd one out, and already being like the beginning of your career, it's not quite easy as a transition of like someone going from one company to another where it's just a different domain. You're still having to try and learn things on the fly as well as getting to know everyone, and it's quite a experience of being thrown in the deep end quite a bit, but you get used to it over time, especially as part of my rotations on the grad scheme. It was something I've experienced quite a few times. But you just kind of get used to that feeling, and everyone around you knows that that's how you're feeling because they've been in that situation themselves. So.
And that's, 5 of us on this video. We're all in completely different teams, different roles, joined at different levels and different times. And we all had this perception that Experian was going to be so corporate, so rigid that you had to act a certain way. And I still have moments now where I think, can I send that? Is that acceptable? Is that language too slang? Is it too chill? Is that okay? Is it not okay? And it does take quite a while actually to just embed in the business and change that perception of what you think on the outside versus what you see in the business every day. And I didn't mean to take us down a tangent around Experian and our culture, but it kind of led us there. So I'm going to get back into questions, get back into a good rhythm. So we've just covered a bit with Rachel around your journey of studying at university, and obviously you had that engineering background. So if I flip to you, Gemma, what did you study at university? And just give a reminder of the role you currently do now.
So at university, I did maths at Sheffield Hallam. Actually, before that, I was sort of umming and ahhing a bit over PE and maths, which seemed quite opposite ends of the spectrum. But I did go for maths in the end. And what I did, on my sort of career was I did a 2-year, first 2 years of my maths degree. And then we were quite pushed to do like a placement year. And I managed to get an interview at Experian and got one of 4 placement roles in the analytics team then. So I did the placement year, really, really good, had a great time, really fun. Went back to uni, did my final year. Then I had a bit of a gap year, you know, like people tend to do these days, and did a bit of traveling and
Guilty, absolutely guilty.
seasons working for about £50 a week or something like that. But yeah, and then I actually noticed that there was a graduate role available in my team, and I was basically actually contacted as well saying, look, if you applied for it, then I'm sure you'll get through, and obviously you've still got the process. But yeah, coming back into the same team as a graduate analyst, and then I think because of that previous experience as well, I've progressed through the team quite well as well. So I was a senior analyst, and recently, a couple of months ago, got promoted to be a lead analyst as well. So yeah, that's me.
Amazing. And then I'll go to you next, Hayley. So what did you study at university? And obviously just a recap of the role that you're in at the moment.
Yes, so I went to uni in Derby, and I did computer games programming. So at the moment I'm doing software development at Experian, so that's kind of the consumer-facing website. So it's a little bit different, although it's still programming at the end of the day. But I also did a placement year as part of my degree, which was actually doing app development. So I've kind of done like the 3 different types of programming through my career already, but each one's slightly different. But there's aspects and stuff that I've taken from each one that's kind of helped me kind of develop and get to where I am now. So a lot of my university focus was on C# with Unity, which has helped me at Experian with our kind of C#.NET microservices. And with my app development placement year, that was kind of focusing on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which has obviously helped me with the front end work here at Experian. So that's kind of helped me kind of flesh out to be a full stack developer in my current role.
And just to drop the bombshell in there as well, it's worth noting Hayley was recently shortlisted as in the category of Graduate of the Year at the Women in Tech Excellence Awards. So we've got that in November. We're incredibly excited to be attending. We'll keep all of our fingers crossed, but it's another prime example of, you know, a brilliant female that's growing in her career, that's learning as much as you can. And you've just heard about the placement and what Hayley learned versus how she applies that in her role. So not to put you on the spot, Hayley, but I think you deserve that recognition. And yeah, a big shout out for that.
Thank you very much, Ariane.
And on to you, Scarlett. So what did you study at university? And again, just a recap of your role.
Hello. So my role is as client support specialist. So day to day, I can be talking to clients, tailoring one of our products to what they want, what data they want coming in, coming out, and things like that. So mine's a bit weird. So I was a bit similar to you, actually, Gemma. So I was deciding whether to do IT computing at uni or whether to do sports science. And I actually went for the sports science degree. And then literally after 2 years, I was like, yeah, I should have gone with the other way. But I finished the degree. And then I was looking around thinking, right, I need to get back into computing. I need to get back into IT. Like, what can I do? And I actually came across a master's course that said for anyone that has like been or is interested in computing and IT, it's a really good sort of course to go on. So I did that at Nottingham-Trent Uni for a year, and I absolutely loved it. I made apps. I made loads of different systems you can imagine, games, but I'm probably not as good as you, Hayley. Yeah, I just really, really loved it. And then I literally drove past Experian, like the building, like every day in Nottingham, and I was like, I really want to work there. I really want to work there. And I applied for the grad scheme, and yeah, I got it. Here I am. So that's me.
Incredible. And for the 4 of you, you've all, as we've covered, had different journeys, joined at different times. But when you first started in your field, so if I start with you, Rachel, what were some of the myths that you had? Obviously, we've covered about corporate dress code. That's probably a myth that's out the window now, especially in this generation. But what other myths did you have before you started your career?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. I think one of the biggest things is the idea that to be the boss, you need to have all the answers and to direct everyone, and like you need to know the answer to everything, and you need to just tell everyone what to do. It's just not like that at all. And actually, going back to that kind of, we talked about imposter syndrome. Actually, like I said, over time, I realized I could just be myself, and that was good. But also, I didn't need to know all of the answers. And actually, sometimes it's the questions that you ask which are far more powerful than the answers you might already have. And I still use it to get myself out of a sticky spot now. You know, if someone says, Rachel, what do you think? I'm like, well, I was just wondering. And then you just ask someone a really difficult question, and then they go away and think about it for a bit more. Meanwhile, you do a bit more digging, you know. So there's kind of, you know, you don't actually need to have all the answers. And sometimes, like I said, if you ask the right question, people can find the answer themselves. So, you know, never feel like you need to know stuff. I think is a good myth buster.
Yeah. What about for you, Gemma? What was a myth you had?
Yeah, so it actually probably relates quite similarly. So like, I think always a myth was when I came in, I was scared to ask questions and like, oh, I'm annoying them. All I'm doing is annoying the other people in the team. But I think one thing I say now is, because we've got placement students and apprentices and graduates in our team, is like, please keep asking questions. Like, the more questions you ask, you just learn so much. And like, I just think it's a myth of like being scared to ask questions and thinking that you're annoying everyone, because you're really not. And the more you're asking, the more you're learning, and just the better you become, basically.
Yeah. What about for you, Scarlett? So I know out of the four, you're the most recent kind of new joiner as such. So have you noticed any myths of what you thought before versus joining?
Ooh. Well, I feel like I'm just going to repeat what everyone said, but I feel like because I did like, because I felt like I only did like I did like A-level IT and things, but because I felt like I'd only done like a year of like sort of computing, I kind of thought, right, everyone I'm going to be working with, even the other graduates, are going to be, you know, really, really good, really, really fast, and like really, really intelligent. And I was like, I'm going to go in, you know, learn all this stuff before I go in. And I remember my manager on my first day, I said to him like, oh, you know, I've done this, this, and this, and he was like, great. He was like, but you didn't need to do that. And that they don't expect at Experian, I've noticed, anything. Like, you could literally go in like just knowing nothing, and they teach everything from day one. So yeah, myth, I thought I'd have to be like top game, like competing with the other grads, but actually I think they quite like the fact that you're don't really know anything and laid back. But
yeah, that's the point of the graduate program. It's the whole idea of any early careers program should be that you come in with the passion and the drive and the willingness to learn and kind of be nurtured, and we give you that experience and that training and that support. It should never be expected that you come in and, you know, as a graduate, if you're applying to a job and they expect you to have 10 years experience, well, that's not going to happen. And that's not the point of a graduate scheme. And obviously, Hayley, you've literally just rolled off the 2-year rotational graduate scheme. We had the celebration in SJP the other day, which was amazing. So now you've had 2 years, you've come off the scheme, you're now a fully fledged software developer, shortlisted for a Women in Tech Excellence Award. What's your myth? What did you think before you joined?
I think definitely the same as Gemma and Scarlett have just said, like, you know, constantly just asking questions and don't feel like you have to know everything. But I'll try and say something a little bit different, just so, you know, we're not saying the same thing over and over again. But I think for me, it was probably one of my kind of concerns about coming into the industry was like the work-life balance, especially in kind of the tech industry. And at the time, obviously, I was thinking about going into the games industry, which is renowned for being really bad at kind of crunch times and everything. But the culture at Experian really focuses on, you know, making sure that everyone's kind of holding each other accountable. If one person works overtime, that kind of sets a precedent and other people feel like they have to. So it's more that you're just kind of looking out for one another and just making sure, like, you know, hey, you okay? Like, why do you feel like you have to work overtime to get that done, kind of thing. And just there's all of the conversations, especially at the moment, it's increasing about mental health awareness and everything. And, you know, it's just that culture of everyone's just constantly looking out for each other. And that was something I didn't expect, especially, you know, we've said about coming into like a big corporation, thinking it's going to be like this big, scary kind of situation, but everyone's just constantly looking out for one another. So it's really lovely environment to work in. I think that's the key thing I've enjoyed and been surprised by.
Yeah, I think that was a shock as well throughout the pandemic, that many other organizations were probably doing the same thing behind the scenes, but I know at Experian there was so many comms and workshops and information about how are you doing, how are you feeling, those kind of weekly surveys and check-ins to make sure how is the business and the business areas and what do people need. And it was almost quite overwhelming at times to realize just how much support was there and how much vulnerability was being showed by our execs and our senior managers, saying, actually, I'm not okay. I'm not coping in all of this, and that is okay. We'll do the best we can as a team, but you're not in it alone. So I think the same to you, Hayley. The work-life balance is a common misconception for anyone going into a tech or data career pathway, that you're going to be working out 50, 60 hours a week and you've got to grind to get to the top and really hustle and work. And that's not always the case. I mean, from your side, Rachel, obviously the career path you've gone and the position you're in now, you're obviously a senior member of Experian. You're incredibly respected across the organisation. I imagine students would want to know, how did you get there? What was that path? How did you get to that career level? So have you got kind of any insight on what you think's helped you along that journey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is recognizing your strengths. We tend to have, I think there is something about corporate culture, and it was definitely true for Barclays, was all around, well, you're quite good at this and this, but you need to get better at these other things, if you want to get anywhere. So you kind of constantly be trying to work on, getting better at something, when actually sometimes you just need to really, really leverage what you're already good at and what you enjoy. So, and it took me quite a long time to work out what my strengths really were. Because I did quite an academic degree and because it was very sciencey, I kind of had it in my head that I wanted to be an analyst or do analytics, but that never kind of worked out. And actually, in retrospect, although I could do it, it's not really a core strength of mine. And actually, my core strengths are really around, problem solving, but more important than anything is just people and how I can inspire and motivate people to get on and do stuff and provide structure to their lives in terms of goals and all that kind of thing. And actually I've discovered that and it took me just a while to have the confidence to realize that, and then in some respects I suppose in the early stages I felt that those kind of skills were a bit fluffy and I didn't really rate them myself. So I kind of was trying to go down a different route, and it just, I think self-awareness sometimes just comes with time. And then once I realized that, then I think it really made a difference. I was able to kind of be confident about what I was going to bring and what my strengths were, and not worry too much about the things I can't do, because there's always someone else who can, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. And to any student or just anyone who's on this session, if you are not aware of it, I'd recommend checking out an organisation called Gallup Strengths. They're really great at being able to showcase what those natural innate strengths are. Now, to get your full 34, I think it is 34 from memory, 34 strengths, it does cost, and I'm not there to promote that at all. But from personal experience, utilizing my Gallup strengths and knowing what they are and how that's helped my career journey is very powerful. And as Rachel said, the earlier you learn that you do not have to know everything, and you don't have to, be brilliant at 20 different things, actually focus on the top 5 things that are really powerful. That's when you can add value and really start progressing your career. So a top tip, check out Gallup Strengths if you can. If you can't, there is something called Red Bull. Yes, the energy drink. If you Google Red Bull Wing Finder, I'll try and link it whilst we're talking and pop it in the chat. But the Red Bull Wing Finder, they also do a free strengths review, and you can download a PDF passport that gives you an overview of some of your natural strengths as well, and that can be quite successful. You can then attach it if you go to interviews. You could feed some of the wording into your CV. So that's also a really powerful tool for any of you on that session. But going back to the four of you and quizzing you, I'm loving this because I just get to ask you as many questions as I like. And a reminder as well, please do pop in the comments on the YouTube channel if you've got any questions. Let those come through now so that when we get to around about 7 o'clock, we've got a bank of questions to go through. But whilst we wait for those to trickle in, I'm going to pick on you first, Hayley, and I want to know, what is it you actually love about your role? What do you really love? What excites you?
I think a couple of things, but I think they kind of feed into each other. Primarily just that every day is different, right? I'm never working on the same thing for too long. We're either trying to improve something that we've already kind of got by looking at feedback and stuff from our customers to make it better for them, or we're thinking of new ways that we can help them. And it's always something slightly different that's always really exciting. But talking about that, it's kind of like the customer really is at the heart of everything that we do. You know, we do so much kind of reviews of how our customers use our site and what type of our customers are using which parts the most, and really feeding that into making sure that we're working on the things that are going to have the biggest impact. And for me, just knowing that what I do day to day is helping somebody just really makes me feel passionate and excited and wanting to crack on and get to work. And I think it's really important to kind of have that feeling to be passionate about what you're working on and kind of have that motivator. And like you say, using data for good, that's the whole thing behind Experian, and that really resonates with me.
It's almost that purpose. It's, you know, we're all here in life, we all want to achieve things and get to a certain point, but it's also about having that drive and feeling like the work you do matters. That purpose is quite important to me, and if it's not there, I don't think I could do that job if I didn't feel like there was some kind of reason behind it. I mean, same question to kind of your side, Rachel. What is it you really love about your job? I know you mentioned some of it earlier about people in your team, but what is it you love?
Yes, I think it must be quite a lot of things that all kind of come together, to be honest, because I do love trying to crack a tricky, gnarly problem and trying to find. I'm quite kind of driven to reach a resolution on things. So, you know, if I can resolve an issue or a problem, then that gives me great satisfaction. I do enjoy working with people and just bouncing ideas off people. You know, they say that you've got introverts and extroverts, and introverts like to sort of go into a cave and noodle it in their heads. I really love to kind of, you know, throw it around and get ideas and sort of voice the ideas to help solidify them. So I do enjoy that interaction with people. Yeah.
Do you find that quite powerful? That, because since I've joined Experian, I've recognised exactly what you said. There's different characters, whether they're introvert, extrovert. The way people think in the business is completely different. I mean, how I approach task versus my colleague, it's like polar opposites. But then when we come together, it is so powerful because he'll pick up on things I've missed and I'll pick up on things he's missed. And have you found that in your team, Rachel, when you're batting ideas because you think differently, it produces something different?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you've just got a feeling or a thought or just the bare bones of something, and then you kind of like just say, right, I'm just going to throw this out there, and then someone will come in from a different angle, and then, like you say, someone will have a different perspective, and then suddenly you get this like aha moment. It's like, oh, you know, we should do it this way, or we should look at this, you know, innovation or product or, you know, process or anything, whatever it is. It's definitely a collaboration for sure. And you're right, you know, some people work in different ways. So some people kind of like to reflect and analyze, whereas some people, you know, like to kind of experiment. So yeah, I think you get those different perspectives.
And there's no right or wrong either, which is important. That it doesn't matter how you approach something, it's about everybody having the chance to input and contribute, and that in itself is powerful. Being in a place where you feel respected and valued for being you, not trying to fit in, mold into something that you're not. So yeah, really powerful point that I'll avoid going down a tangent again. So coming back to you, Scarlett, same kind of question. From your perspective, what is it you really love about your role? It's hard because you're quite new in as well. I might be asking you too soon.
No, 6 months. I've learned loads. Probably that I love the most that I learn like every single day, like whether it's from speaking to a client or speaking to somebody in my team, or even just like walking in the office and meeting people that I've never met before, like, and they telling me what they do. I just love the diversity of experience. But yeah, and also I love that if I ever have like a problem or I've had a stressful day, there will just be like there's like one single thing that I need to change, or one like process that needs doing, and then it's done and the stress is gone. Like I don't know if it's just my team, I work in a really nice team, but I've never felt really stressed. Everything's very, very easy going. And as soon as I kind of leave the office, it's kind of like, that's it. And then the next day and I start again. So yeah, a few things.
And lastly, coming on to you, Gemma. So what do you love about your role?
So it is probably a theme in this, but isn't it, about learning and stuff? But I think if I take it down like the analytics route, so I think about like 2 years ago, we went through a big like transformation, and we were previously using like SAS language and SQL language, and we've gone through this big transformation to use more like modern languages. So now I've fully just been able to learn Python, other teams learning R, machine learning that we're now building models on. I feel like just Experian as a whole as well. Like we had the Innovation Month this month, where we've had like an innovation fair, and I actually presented with one of my teammates today what one of these this new model that we've built, and it's and I think like I just love that. Like I think the management's really focused to you as well. So like I can see how my manager treats me slightly differently to some of more introverted people in my team as well. And like a big development plan of mine was like presenting and stuff. So she like sort of pushed me to do that. She was like saying she believed in me and stuff. So I think I just really love like the learning and the forward movement and just the support that you do get at Experian.
Yeah, absolutely. And to everyone that's popping questions through, I'm loving some of the themes. We are going to get to those in the next 10 minutes. And I'm really excited because some of these questions are just, yeah, they're going to be great to cover and do a couple more myth busting elements. So the one thing that I really want to ask, and it feeds into Code First Girls and why Anna really focused on setting up Code First Girls and empowering more women to go into tech and data career pathways, is that some people hit roadblocks. Some people find it challenging. Some people find it daunting. We've spoke about some of the myths and some of the issues that can sometimes hold people back. But I do think it is important to be transparent that it isn't always easy. Doesn't matter what job you do, there are always challenges. There are always things that are tricky. But what would be great is if we can get different perspectives of what the four of you have found most challenging since you've started your career in tech or data. So it can be absolutely anything. People, courses, learning, technology, all of the above. But if I start with maybe, I'm going to pick on you, Hayley, just because your video is right in front of my face. What did you find the most challenging when you started your career pathway within tech and data? And I know you said you did a placement, so I guess it kind of started there, but what was the most challenging?
It's quite difficult to choose the most challenging. I think there's been quite a few. I think definitely right at the start of my career was just going to be kind of imposter syndrome and just thinking that tech wasn't right for me as a woman. I think I told my parents that that was the degree I wanted to do, and my dad asked if that was a real thing. And I went to uni, and I was one of 4 girls out of about 250 people on the course. And by the final year, I was the only woman left out of about 50 people that actually made it through the course. So the entire
how
time.
did you combat that? But not to interrupt, Hayley, but
Yeah, no, go on.
if a student imagines if they were in your shoes and you were the last female on that course, how did you continue through? How did you break through that barrier and, you know, make sure that you go, well, I'm not going to give up. So what?
I think it was incredibly daunting at times, you know, because you just didn't really have anyone else to kind of share that similar experience with. But I think the thing that kind of motivated me, on the very first day I showed up to my lecture, someone asked me if I was in the wrong place. And that was what I kept in my mind, that was my determination of, I'm going to prove you wrong. I am in the right place and I can do this. And I just kind of kept that in mind the entire time through my career. Whenever I doubted myself, that's what I kind of took myself back to and thought, no, I can do this. I've got as much right as anybody else to be here. So at the time I was very angry, but now I'm quite grateful that they said that to me. Otherwise, I think maybe I could have been one of those other people that dropped out, you know. So
it's such an important thing to remember that I'm a stubborn person, so I would have done the same. I would have been like, hell no, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm not letting you say that. I'm going to complete this course and come out top of my class. Not having it, because it is that drive to almost challenge misconceptions and people that doubt you, because it is possible to go into tech and data from a non-tech or data background to be the only female on the course. There are no barriers but yourself at the end of the day. That is the only thing that holds you back. And I don't know if anyone else who's listening would resonate with that, but please do pop in the comments if anything Hayley said sounds familiar to you or you've ever felt that way. But I'm going to come on to you, Rachel, as well, onto the same question on what did you find most challenging? So either when you started your career versus the journey you've been on to get to the senior position you're in now, what was challenging for you?
I would say it comes right back to that imposter syndrome right again. You know, sometimes the things you fear most are the things you really don't need to worry about, and it happens still now again and again. You know, you kind of look around and you think, oh, have I got it wrong? Is it going to fall flat? And then when someone gives you a compliment or says it went well, somehow that surprises you. It shouldn't surprise you, but it still does sometimes. So I think, you know, you've just got to stay true to your values, believe in yourself, and you know what? Don't try and please everyone. You know, you cannot win them all. And I think some of us are perfectionists and we try and win them all and we can't. And there will always be some people who just don't click with you or don't resonate or don't, you know, and you need to kind of just go, you know what? That's fine. I can live with that. There's other people over here who appreciate what I do. So crack on, you know. I think that's the biggest thing. Learning curve is like, you know, learning to get over the fact that you can't win them all, and you shouldn't either. So, yeah. But I would say again, it takes a bit of time to develop a thick enough skin to be able to do that, and you know, that's definitely a challenge.
And I've just seen a comment come through again. Please forgive me on pronunciation of names. With a name like Oriane, I've been called Onion in my lifetime. So believe me, I've been there. But I think a heart show, if I've got that correct, was one of 6 girls out of 100 engineering students. Yeah. So you definitely weren't alone, Hayley. And it's what makes these kind of events and these kind of partnerships quite powerful. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Rachel, because I know you do need to drop off now. So thank you so much for joining us. We are going to continue. So please, for everyone watching, please don't just drop off. We have got a little bit more to go. But Rachel, thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll catch up again very soon, and enjoy your evening.
Yeah, it's been really great. And thank you for hosting us, Oriane. And, you know, if there's any questions that you want me to follow up on afterwards, I can more than happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. And same question your side then, Scarlett. So what was most challenging for you? We touched upon some of this when you first joined, and that panic of, oh my God, I've done a year in computer science, but I don't actually know computer science. What am I doing? But aside from that, if we park that, what was the most challenging when you first joined?
When I first joined, I was going to say like actually having the guts to like actually apply for the course and apply for the grad scheme, but actually when I joined,
no, I like that one. Not to pick on it, but
yeah, I did, well that is what I
did
found
you
most challenging,
doubt?
but it's still now.
You know, when you first you were thinking of applying,
Yeah,
was that imposter syndrome there of, am I good enough for Experian? Will I get this job at Experian?
yeah, massively. I think because I thought, oh, I've only done a year of this, there's going to be a lot more people probably that know a lot more than me, that are a lot older than me. And even when I was going through the process, like obviously you do meet other people that you kind of competing against, and it's really bad because you kind of sit there and you think like, oh yeah, he sounds quite intelligent, oh yeah, she's quite good, and you really like make like you don't actually think, oh, like I sound quite good. You don't like do that, and I think I'm so happy that I applied now, but definitely the most challenging thing I would do was applying for the software engineering scheme, just because I thought, oh, I'm going to be like one of the bottom. But here I am now, so never doubt yourself, and if you ever question whether to do something or not, just do it, because you regret it if you don't.
You've got nothing to lose at all, and I always come back to what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone says no. Okay, no, move on with my life, carry on, go on to the next thing. It's never going to stop you, but if you don't try, how do you know that that no isn't actually a yes? And you've just convinced yourself that it's going to be a no and therefore shut that opportunity. It is being brave enough to start that process that can actually be a blocker for some people. And coming back to you last, Gemma, what was most challenging for you when you started your career?
So I quite like going last because I get a bit of a chance to think about it. But no, so I'd probably say like being in analytics and stuff, I think you're designed, well, you're almost going into it because you're a bit of a perfectionist, and you're like looking for all the answers for everything. And I think like that first failure was like a massive sort of challenge for me. So just one thing maybe where I'd been told to do something and I'd almost just read that differently and taken a different turn. And then as we were going to present the results, like how the management came back to me and was like, oh no, you've basically done this wrong, and it was absolutely fine, and like there was nothing from it, but it was me myself that just felt so like disheartened and like, how have you done that, Gemma? But I just think it's like you're always going to fail. And in my notebook at work, actually, there's like a quote at the end which says, what does it say? I've not failed, I found 1,000 ways that won't work. And I think that's like a true fact in analytics as well. So yeah, mine's probably around that.
It's a constant journey we're all on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all still trying to figure out life, what the hell we're doing with our life. It's normal, but nobody has the answers. And again, for people, if you do apply, if you end up joining Experian, which by the way, I would love that. But when you're in the business, you realize that all of these execs and managers are the same, and they'll come to you expecting the answers. They'll go, Gemma, you know that bit way better than I do. That's your specialism. What do you think about it? And then you suddenly panic and think, oh my God, a senior manager is trusting in me to know this one area because that's my role. And you're like, yeah, I do know that. That's my job. I'm brilliant at this. But it's quite a reverse way of thinking to come to a business like Experian, where all of our execs, as Rachel said earlier, they don't know the answers to everything. So they will go to you to say, what do you think? What's your input? Because everybody's valued. And that's quite a challenging thing. So I think for anyone trying to start a career in tech and data, being able to learn from, as you said, Gemma, your failures, learn from what doesn't go well. But then when you get that experience and you trust in it, being able to then deliver that with confidence to go, well, I know that answer now, but I know the answer because I messed it up a few years ago, or I got that wrong. So I'm going to pause this for a moment and switch to the questions, because we've had some really great themes come through from the students. So what I'm going to do is I will try and cover a few that I know I'll be able to, but as well for any of you, I'll just pick on you randomly if that works. So the first one we've got is from the username 9blue. Interesting. Would the graduate schemes be open to graduates from non-traditional degrees like biology? So having just inducted, God, what was it, Scarlett? I think we had about 47. It was a lot, 47 plus students on our early careers programme. Hand on heart, we have recruited people from a complete range of degree backgrounds. So I know Ben Woodcock, who's just rolled off the IT graduate scheme. He studied English literature and he works in IT. I know that, I won't say the name just in case they don't want to. I know Ben's fine with it, but there's a lady that's joined our software engineering program and she studied psychology and she had the same level of imposter syndrome to consider, well, do I know this? Actually, is that right? But her transferable skills were so focused on that bigger picture, that analytical process, that it was a natural fit. But she had such a passion to go into software development that the degree wasn't a blocker. It proved her capacity to learn, but the subject is irrelevant. That should never stop where you want your career to go. So for 9Blue, very short and simple, yes, our program is open to anyone from any degree. It doesn't matter if you studied zoology right through to what is it, nano degree in physics, science, something. Yeah, the graduate that joined on that degree, she's going to slap my wrist for getting that wrong. But it really doesn't matter what your background is at all. We welcome everyone to apply. So moving on to the next questions. This is one for you, Scarlett. So LJ was interested to learn, what was the name of the master's course that you did at NTU?
It was computing systems. I think they still do it now. I'm hoping they do. Yeah, they will do. It was just, I think I picked it because I don't know, why did I pick? I picked it because it had like loads of different programs, or modules as they call them, don't they? So it said you can make a website, you can make an app, you can make a game, you can learn C#. It just had so much variety, and I think that's what I wanted, because I wasn't 100% sure what area of tech I wanted to go into, which is why I picked that particular course. And then it's funny because I remember when I joined it, I was thinking, oh yeah, I want to make websites, that's what I want to do. And then I came out and I was like, I want to make games. And then I joined Experian, and I now work with clients. So, I think if you're going to, I don't understand go, it was honestly the best thing I did.
Amazing, thank you. And the next question is, again, pronunciation of names. If I get this wrong, I do apologise in advance. But Sujatha has asked around, are there any specific inputs or advice for introverts and how to be successful at work? So I am quite clearly a natural extrovert. So this is probably a very terrible question for me. But I don't know for the three of you, if you have any input from your side of, if you're more introvert, how would you be successful at work? What would be your thoughts?
I don't mind answering this one. Definitely recognize myself as an introvert. So I think like the key thing that I found is just kind of identifying which kind of situations you feel most comfortable in, and kind of just making sure that your team is aware of those, so that you can all kind of work together. So most recently, our team leader was looking for some feedback on a kind of change in our team structure. So rather than kind of just presenting the change in a meeting and then asking for immediate feedback, what they did was actually sent out a poll on Slack for us to all kind of fill in, which for me was really good because I really struggled to actually kind of analyze all of the information and think of questions on the spot. So if they'd done that in the session, I probably wouldn't have asked anything. Whereas being able to take the time and kind of go away and think about, oh, what does this really mean for me and the team, and then put those questions forward was really important to help me kind of get my voice out there. So it's really kind of just making sure that you're aware yourself of ways that you work, and just making sure that your team is aware of that and works around that as well.
Yeah, if you've got a really good line manager, not only will they listen, but they'll also adapt and understand, and it's their role to get the best out of you and make sure that you feel safe and comfortable. So actually opening up in a way that works for you at the time that you're ready to is only going to enhance your career. I mean, I don't know if there's anything you'd add, Gemma. I can see you nodding, so I didn't know if you were going to jump in.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say something like similar to sort of what I mentioned before, how like I have got a really, really good line manager, and how she treats me is really different to how she treats other members of the team, because she like tailors so much to how everyone is, and like looks at what their development is and what they want to do and how they respond to things like that. So I think, well, I'd like to hope that a lot of line managers at Experian are like that. And I do know that in the training, they get monthly training packs and stuff. And I think there's a lot of stuff in there about, we're just so focused, I think, on people, especially at the moment, especially since lockdown, I think as well, that it is a massive thing. So it's not really advice, is it? It's more saying that it's a safe place.
Yeah, and I hope that really helps for anyone that may be an introvert on this session that's wondering, how can I be successful at work? Do I have to be that extrovert character? The answer is absolutely no. It's playing to your strengths, and exactly as Hayley said, finding the situations that work best for you and moving that in a way that fits your work, so that you can contribute in the way that works best for you. So moving on to the next question. So I'm going to scroll down a bit because we've got a couple similar themes. There's a lot of questions about courses and classes, which I know Code First Girls are responding to, so that's really fab. So I think the next one is Anelia. So she's asked, can you work in technology and work as a developer even without a computer science or related degree? So I think this is a theme we touched upon earlier with Ben and English language and zoology and all of those elements. Absolutely is the short and sweet. It does not matter what you've studied. It may help with the more transactional and immediate induction into a business. You might know some common acronyms, there might be a few themes, but it's only going to help you for those first couple of months in your career. You've still got all of this to learn as a fresh newbie, regardless of what you've studied. So it doesn't really put you miles ahead. It can help. That's not to discount computer science degrees at all, because they have so much credibility, but it's not a blocker either. And I think it's convincing and changing your mindset to realize, actually, why can't I work as a developer regardless of my degree? You should be asking companies that question. Why won't you let me apply if I've done biology, but I want to do software development, software engineering? The right companies will see your strengths and your potential above the subject that you've studied. So I hope that helps, Anelia, and I hope it kind of fits that theme of breaking down barriers, that it really doesn't matter what you've studied. So on to the next question. So Shahana asked a question around, will we be sponsoring the Code First Girls Nano degree next year? I would love for us to. I can't put that speculation on the cards at this moment, but obviously for this year, we do have some nano degree courses that we are sponsoring. We've obviously got a few of these MOOCs and a few other elements that we're working with Code First Girls with. This is the first year that we've partnered with them. So this is really exciting for us as a business. I would love to see that relationship continue and hopefully grow in the future. But equally, I can't commit to that. I would get told off if I tried to say an absolute yes here and now. But if all goes well, Shahana, I would like to see that there will be nano degrees next year, but there are opportunities this year with Experian. So if you check some of the links that Code First Girls have sent, you'll be directed to that space. So moving on to the next question. So a very similar theme, but I think it will feed into a nice question around just general career and application advice. So Rashida asked, any advice for a career changer without a background or degree in STEM? So if we think about just general application advice, general interview advice, I'll kick us off. It will give the three of you a few moments to think. But from my side, what I really like is when I can see on someone's CV some of those transferable skills. So as I've mentioned, there was someone that studied zoology and they were able to showcase how part of what they'd done was actually really analytical. It was quite detailed. They were looking at lots of information, processing lots of things to then make a decision on how to treat that animal, what you should do next. And that for us was quite powerful when they applied to a data analytics scheme, and we could see straight away the correlation. It was easy to slot the two hand in hand. So I think drawing upon your transferable skills is quite important. You're obviously here listening to a talk from us, which is great. Highlight that on your CV. Anything you do with Code First Girls, if it's a short course, if it's some of these MOOCs, those are also worth putting on your CV, because you're giving up an hour and a half on a, don't even know if it's Wednesday or Thursday, which is terrible, on a Wednesday. You know, you're giving up an hour and a half of your time to listen to an employer talk about tech and data career pathways. That shows dedication. That shows that you want a career in that field. You're giving your time in this sector. So I think that's quite powerful in itself. I mean, if I pick on you next, Gemma, general career advice, someone that's interviewed graduates as well, what advice would you have?
Yeah, so one thing in our team, so say like from maybe an analytics, but I'm sure it's the same in the other ones. We really look for someone that gets excited when like the penny drops, which sounds a bit silly, but coding is not easy, and you're going to do things like that. So I think actually having that passion, like you've already mentioned, I don't know if you've heard of like Data Camp as well. There's a lot of coding on there, and there's loads of different free courses that you can use. So again, just bringing up that in interviews and things like that, put it on your CV, cover letter, actually showing that like interest and passion and you want to learn is a lot more sometimes than someone that's just, I don't know, gone to something because they had to, or just sat through something.
Yeah, absolutely. And Hayley, what would be your advice if you're thinking about someone from a non-tech, non-STEM background, or just generally applying to Experian? What did you kind of tell yourself when you applied and you were being interviewed?
I think it's kind of like you say, it's just that passion and that want to learn. I think even in some cases, like some companies will see it as an advantage that you don't have that background, you don't have that prior knowledge, because sometimes actually, depending on how you might have learned things, you might have picked up some bad habits, or you just might not know best practices and everything. And they have to kind of take that back out of you and kind of undo that learning, which is really hard to do. Whereas if you don't have that background to start with, it's a fresh slate and they can just teach you, the way that they want you to do things right off the bat. And it's kind of easier to just hit the ground running with it rather than, take those backward steps to start with. So I think just remember that it's not a negative thing that you don't have that kind of prior experience and knowledge. And as long as you're showcasing that passion that, you're willing to learn and pick up new things, like Orion says, you're giving up your own personal time right now. Obviously, you're passionate about it, and just make sure that you're shouting that from the rooftops as much as you can, because any company is going to love that. So.
Brilliant. And I'll move us on to the next question, which I'm going to direct to you, Gemma. So Zemby has asked us, doing a master's in AI with basic knowledge in Python and R, are coding skills needed to be a data scientist?
Well, that's an interesting question, because it looks like you've already got a little bit of knowledge, so that's good. I think no, you don't need it. I think it's a similar thing to what we were saying before. Again, it's we have recently gone through a transformation where we've learned all these languages and built up and things. And again, we're just looking for people that want to learn. And again, so I don't think it's definitely not needed. Like, I think sometimes on the job descriptions, we do say it's like maybe like recommended, or we would like that. But again, if you can sort of fill that in with something else, and almost like you've gone online, you've done you've done all these data camp tracks, you've done this, then I think that's probably even more than basic, would definitely work.
Yeah, and not to kind of pick on you, Zemby, at all, but the fact you're even asking, I've got basic knowledge in Python and R, even basic knowledge is powerful. Where's the credit and self-recognition to go, actually, I know some common code, I've got common basic knowledge of this, but that's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
And it's about bigging yourself up to go, actually, good for me. Yeah, I've got information, I've got value to add. I should apply. Why shouldn't I? Don't discount yourself from any job ever. What's the worst that could happen, as we've said? They say no. Okay, move on, carry on, next thing.
Yeah. To add to that as well, actually, almost having that basic knowledge is like almost the best you could have, because if you've already started learning Python, it's like the most wide, crazy thing. You could go in anything, you could do anything with Python. So almost the basic is just really what you need, because you don't know what you're sort of going into. So I think actually it probably works better.
Yeah. And the next question I can see is from Mel. So Mel was asking, are roles office-based or are there remote working opportunities? So as a business, if you Google Experian hybrid working, I think we were in the Nottingham Post a couple months back when we announced our new remote working and kind of hybrid working model. We've basically got 4 different positions of how we kind of categorize in the business. So we've got what we call hub. So you are permanently based in the office. That tends to be kind of server engineers, people that are physically needed on site or in the office 24/7. That is just a requirement of the role. We've then got home, so permanent home workers. And it could be that employees have requested that because it fits their lifestyle. It could be that they live in an area that it's just more convenient to work from home. So I know a few of our smaller offices have closed during the pandemic because it's just not viable. And people have actually said, I'd rather work from home, but I don't need to go into that small office. I'd be at home and that's fine. The third option is what we call roam. And that tends to be our sales consultants that are obviously up and down the UK, visiting clients and customers, roaming. I can't explain that one any better. And then the last one is the hybrid model. So that is a blend of working from home and working in the office. And I think that's what around about, don't quote me on this, but I think something like 86% of our people move to that model. So there definitely are remote working opportunities. It does vary per team. It does vary based on the role. But what we want to do is accommodate what works for you as an individual. And that's quite important to us. So it's a little bit more complicated, but if I was to summarize holistically, I would say yes, Mel, it is remote working, it is hybrid. I don't know about for the 3 of you, but even now, there's still no pressure that teams are figuring out. It might be that we come in 2 days a week. We might say, okay, can everyone come in on a Wednesday? So at least everyone's together 1 day a week. There's a lot of flex and fluid elements to how we're going to work hybrid. But what matters is that you're supported and that you're working in a way that is best for you. So if you want to be more at home and only come in when it's required, when there's formal meetings, when there's big projects, that's fine. If you need to bounce off people and be in the office more, that's also fine. So I hope that covers your question, Mel. And I'll move on to the next one from Stella. So she's asked, are there any opportunities for a placement year at Experian? So we are currently going through roles at the moment. We will hopefully, don't quote me on this, but be going live in the next 4 to 8 weeks. I will pop my LinkedIn on this session afterwards, but if you connect with me on LinkedIn, the moment any of our roles go live, I will post about them so you will know, and that may be the quickest way for you to hear about it. We do have a few placement opportunities in the pipeline for this year, but they are single-digit numbers, so there are not many at all. They are going to be fiercely competitive, and that is just unfortunately because we don't have that many on offer. So connect with me on LinkedIn if you can, Stella. I will try and let you know as soon as they go live, but we will have a select few this year. Moving on to the next question. So Jessica asked, do you know how long ago you had to have graduated to get onto a grad scheme, or does it not matter? So I feel like I'm just answering all of these questions, which is terrible. But no, it doesn't matter how long ago you graduated at all. The point of a graduate scheme is if you've done a degree, you are classed as a graduate. Therefore, you can apply to a graduate scheme. The only time I would encourage slightly against it is I would say if you've got 3 or more years experience, I would try to be encouraging you to go for direct hire positions where you can then start progressing your career. Now, by 3 years experience, I mean full experience in the role you want. I know most of us, when we finish university, we get a job just to get us by. Some of us work in retail, some of us end up going full-time at a bar. That's great experience, but I would say 3 years in the field that you want to go into, or that's maybe transferable, that would be when I'd say start looking at maybe direct hire versus a graduate scheme. So there isn't a rule, that isn't a block at all. If you've got 4 years experience, you can still apply to our grad scheme technically, but it's more from personal experience. The direct hire route, when you've got that level of experience, could actually be a little bit more convenient for you and maybe at a better level for the knowledge that you've got. So I hope that helps, Jessica. God, going down, we've had quite a few. Okay, going back to Sujatha, so they mentioned around some clarity on the selection criteria. They applied, they got through to the technical assessment, but they couldn't clear the video interview stage. So the first thing I would say is thank you to applying to us. And I'm sorry it didn't quite get to where you wanted to be. But in terms of what we look for in people, Gemma, I know you've been with me at those assessment centres. I know you've seen the calibre, and you know, when we do those wash-ups, it's the hardest decision when we're trying to, you know, decide between talent when it is fiercely competitive. But I don't know if from your perspective there's anything you can talk about of what stood out to you, what you've observed at assessment centres and those characteristics that have made an impression that maybe Sujatha could bring into that video interview stage to try and portray?
Yeah, so I think it's sort of just having like an overall view of things as well. And like, I would talk, so this is like the video interview stage, isn't it, rather than the group?
Yeah, but I'm thinking the two kind of do go hand in hand. The video interview is so close to the assessment centre, but the video interview is your chance to showcase you as a person, kind of who you are. It is that mini interview stage. So that's why I was asking, thinking the interviews you've had, Gemma.
I think it's sort of like just trying to be just really bringing yourself to it as well. Like I think sometimes if you just being very monotone and things like that, and it's having some enthusiasm for the job maybe, it's quite a tough one actually, isn't it?
It is. I put you on the spot.
Every time you do like one person, like someone think, oh, this one's really good, and then this one's really good, and then oh god, I have to choose one. And I think the one thing I've noticed is a lot of people tell us at the video interview stage what they think we want to hear instead of what's actually authentic and what's true to themselves. And that's quite important. It's really important that you don't try to, you know, quote things for the sake of it or be way over the top thinking that's what we're looking for. Actually, we want you to be your natural self. Yes, show that passion, show those transferable skills, you know, show that drive and interest. But as Gemma's pointed out, it's delivering that in a way that is true to you. And it doesn't mean you need to be all singing and dancing on that video. You don't need to be waving your arms and, hey, I'm such and such. It's great. I'm really excited to apply. You can be more calm and collected, and that is still perfectly fine. We don't favour that show. It's not about being extrovert or introvert or tailoring that style, but it is about delivering it with confidence and conviction and that authenticity. That's what's quite important and what will matter and what we pick up on when we are reviewing those video interviews. So it is competitive. It can be challenging, and rejection sucks, in all honesty. We've all been rejected for jobs throughout our career journey,
but it is also a great learning experience and it will push you for that next thing. So please don't give up, Sujatha. Please keep applying to roles that you are interested in. If this is a field you're passionate about, keep pushing and going for it. But also use things like these sessions to learn and grow from it and pull out the hidden gems that may help that future application. So I hope that was useful. And what I'll start doing is trying to wrap us up now, because we're almost at the end of the session. Scarlett and I are almost sat in the dark, which shows
I know, I was
just
thinking
how
like
late
my
it is.
computer's gone off. I was like, did anyone notice? I was like, I'm just going to sit here and the button's like across the room. I was like, no, I'll be fine.
But I just want to really wrap up by saying a massive thank you to everyone that's joined us this evening. Thank you for asking so many questions and really getting involved. This will be live on YouTube even after this session. I think it's live for another 2 weeks. So for anyone that has missed it, you'll be able to catch up, listen, get involved. And in terms of resources, so I've obviously mentioned about the Red Bull Ring Finder, and that's been popped in the chat. We mentioned about Gallup Strengths, which is quite useful. That's also been popped in the chat. And then the last thing I would say is, if anybody is interested in exploring a career path with Experian, I've just popped a link to my LinkedIn, and that will be shared in just a moment. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I will let you know the moment roles go live. You can also stalk our early careers website, but I'm probably going to ping you the moment I know myself. And from all of us, a massive, massive thank you for joining. So, Aileen, I don't know if there's anything you need to do to wrap up now.
No, not really. It was thank you so much, ladies, for giving your time and sharing your experiences with our audience today. Lots of really great questions and really great sharing. Just wanted to remind the audience that there is a career switching course sponsored by Experian, so that is on the Code First Girls website if you're interested. They are sponsoring the Python course as well as the SQL course, so that's something you could look into if you're interested and apply. And apart from that, keep in touch with our lovely panel today if you like. And like what Orion was saying, stay tuned on their early career site. But apart from that, thanks all so much for joining us. I'll end the broadcast, and it's going to be live on YouTube. It's going to be left on YouTube for the next 2 weeks. So if people want to revisit, you're very welcome to. But thank you so much. I'm going to end it. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.